figured it out. Yep. It was something simple, and like it was always something simple. It's like uh, how you doing? They already yeah.
right, time is 6:02. I want to respect your time and thank you for being here and being on time. This is number 3 of 6 planned parent meetings. First, good evening. Did I say good evening? All right, good evening. Good evening. Glad y'all came out despite the weather as well. This is number 3 of 6 planned meetings that we have throughout the community. Primarily to empower parents, and I hope that what I have to share with you tonight will be of that nature. Let me talk to you about the format of tonight. I will go through my presentation, followed by an opportunity for questions. But what I want to do is separate individualized questions from questions good for the group. I'll hang down at the front and stay as long as I need to answer individual questions or route you in the right direction. We'll leave the floor open for any questions that are good for the group. Allow me just a moment to acknowledge one of my board members, our vice president of the school board, Dr. Lisa Garrett. Thank you so much, Dr. Garrett, for being here tonight. It means a lot. And also to my senior cabinet, my principals, and other professionals, Principal Horton, all of you would just raise your hand. Thank you so much as well. For all those who I just mentioned for being here tonight as well. And always to our safety and security department for your presence and for your support. I don't have a clicker, so I got to say next slide. So next slide. So again, I render my thanks. This means a lot. And as opposed to having one meeting in one location, we decided to do 6. What I'm trying my best to do as a superintendent is, I don't know any other way to say it, but eliminate excuses. Because we have some very important information that we need to get out. And a page that we need to commit to getting on together. And I know that's going to take some time for those of us who are not on the same page. So this is one of my efforts to help get us better on the same page, but specifically to give you some good information. Next slide, please. One right before that, please. There you go. So with that said, was there one right before? Yeah, that's the one. Let me just make sure that you're clear. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so blessed to be your superintendent. You have no idea what it means to be able to serve in Macon, in Bibb County. But tonight is not about me. So I want to make sure that you know the focus is more tonight on our students and the opportunities I think you need to know about, and in my effort to frame it as such. So my lens has really nothing to do with me. Hopefully you already read the bazillions of pieces of information that are out there about me, and if you haven't, it's still out there. But tonight it's not going to be about me, but more about our students. Next slide, please. With that said, I want to remind you of Let's Talk, and this is the perfect way for you to get information to us by way of concerns. I will call out that I do see we have an issue as far as communication of our chain of command. We're going to work on that so that people understand that when you send a concern, what happens to that concern and who's next in line to support that. I already see an opportunity for us to improve on that. And I know there's some Let's Talks that might have come to me, and I'll explain that later on. But we want to make sure everybody's concerns are addressed in a quality manner. So just a reminder of that as it relates to any concerns you may have. You know, we continue to be grounded in our mission, in our vision, in our values. We are in the midst of a strategic plan process where we will chart the path for the next 5 years. And with that said, and as we sunset this year, we will sunset based on this same mission and this same vision that guides what we do right now, along with these same values. Next slide. Along that same line, we're very aware of the fact that at the core of what we will continue to do is this idea of increasing student achievement. And it is in that vein that I want to approach you this evening with what I think is some valuable information about what we have been doing, not only while I've been here, but even before, and how it's all coming together to create a great situation and a set of opportunities for all of our students. Next slide. So our time together will be spent simply on these 3 questions. What happened? What's happening? And what is next? And as we get ourselves prepared and go to the next slide, I want you to be clear about what my vision is and will continue to be. And that is to cultivate a strong desire to learn and co-create a path to success for every student. I want to annotate this very briefly and then move into the meat of my presentation. Next slide. So the strong desire to learn perhaps is one of the most important ones, and what we are already observing is the same thing that everybody else is observing. We have some students who come every single day, ready to go, ready to learn, throttle down on the ground, 100%. Then other students who we need to support and encourage and push to give that same effort in the midst of everything that we're trying to do. But part of my vision is to make sure that every student gets to the point where they strongly desire to learn, not just now, but in the future. Next slide. Co-creation is so critical, which is why I wanted to have this meeting. What's necessary for co-creation is for a team to be on the same page. And I felt it necessary to have this time to come to you and give you some information and an update as to where we're going in terms of the direction of our district, which is why we're here tonight. Next slide. So I already had an opportunity to speak to some great individuals. This is a picture actually from our Business Education Partners Luncheon in the very beginning of the year. I was able to communicate my vision, cast a strong focus, and then solicit support. And I will have you know, from that meeting up to the present, we've had significant response, meaningful response, which is really the lead reason why I did not want to have meetings at the beginning of the year with the parents as opposed to now. I wanted to kind of get in the weeds. Let's start building. Let's make it more about the district as opposed to this new guy that you can read about and, of course, get to know for hopefully a long time. Next slide, please. So it was just gratifying for me to stand before that crowd and give them great information, which is why I stand before you today to give you what I feel is very important for you to know. Next slide. Let's start with what happened. And I want to just remind you, how many ninth grade parents do I have? Well, how many parents, first of all? How many parents are here tonight? Fantastic. How many ninth grade parents do I have? All right, 10th grade parents. All right, let's stay with 10th grade. Imagine a 10th grade student whose 7th grade year was cut short in 2020, whose 8th grade year was behind in computer screening, whose 9th grade year was behind a mask with more focus on health and wellness than anything else for obvious reasons, who is now in the 10th grade. I don't want us to dismiss the fact that we returned in a way that nobody's ever seen before. We didn't just come back to school and things just went back to normal. Nothing is close to normal right now. And as I look at my principals and other educators in this building, they are now dealing with what nobody has dealt with before. I take that back. They may have dealt with it in 1918 when the Spanish flu hit. That's the only other relative piece I can think of in terms of a pandemic affecting the lives of the entire world and specifically impacting what happened in schools. I share that with you because it's important to understand what our students have gone through, and we are still uncovering what they are going through. But what's important for you tonight to know is that as we uncover what students have gone through, we've been working hard to make sure that on the other end of this are great and amazing opportunities to excel as a part of this world, which is what I will share tonight. Next slide. So again, as I just said, this was the reality for a lot of students, and we don't need to forget that this was a stark difference from what students were used to coming to school every single day. The social interaction and everything associated with the regular school. Next slide. And then this happened, as I just said. And I want you to imagine, if you will, if you had to come somewhere 8 hours a day and try your best to stay as far away from Dr. Lovett as you possibly can and everybody else, and to make sure that you wipe this and sanitize this and move here and put this up and put that down and cover your nose, all of that for an entire year, if not more. Impact all day long. And I'm painting this picture because I need you to understand that we are very well aware of what we've gone through, and I need everybody to make sure they understand that context. So with that said, I want to take some time to first help you understand what Dr. Sims means when he says hashtag Built for Bibb. It is not just a hashtag. It's not just a catchy phrase. It is the movement that I'm striving to get this entire district on. And allow me to explain. So the first idea is that we put in our hands the right tools that we need in response to the times, which is why I took time to explain the times to you, because there needs to be a relationship between the times and the conditions we have and the tools that we access and the capacity that we use to build ourselves up. Next slide. This is important because I don't know how much we think about the fact that a child's environment affects every facet of their life. And this is Bronford Brenner's ecological model. This came out in 1979 and is still relevant to today. What's not on this ecological model is a pandemic. So imagine all of this already impacting students, and then lay on top of that a pandemic and everything that's impacted by it, and the different dynamics in different environments. You can only imagine the impact. Think about the impact that your community and your upbringing had on you. And I think it's important for us to be sensitive to that. Next slide. So Bibb for Bibb has 4 key elements that everybody needs to understand. The first element, and the 4 is intentional because of the 4 elements. The first is that of individual capacity. This came about when I was vying for this role, and I remember telling the school board at that time I felt like I was built to be the superintendent for Bibb County School District. And I said, what's a catchy way to say that? Built for Bibb. So the first aspect of Bibb for Bibb is that of individual capacity. Whatever your role is as a board member, a parent, a principal, a superintendent, that your individual capacity is aligned to the needs and to the interests of our students. And not just that you have capacity, but there's a relationship between the two. The second aspect of Bibb for Bibb is that of individual or collective employee capacity. We do realize that we are the ones who spend the most waking hours of the day with students day in and day out. Nobody else does that in this entire world. So it's important for us to build our collective employee capacity. That is that I take my capacity and combine it with your capacity and your capacity. And we put all of that together and boil it up so that students can feel this collective impact every single day they come into a building. And that's something that we're building. And again, it is aligned to meet the needs and the interests of our students as we discover them. The third is where you come in, and that is parent and community capacity. Our business partners, faith-based organizations, parents in every single home, that you work to build your capacity in response to these times to meet the needs of your individual students, and if you're that neighborhood person, of the students that you serve and try to love on every single day. And the idea behind Bibb for Bibb is that if I build my individual capacity to meet the needs of students, if I combine my capacity with those who I work with to meet students' needs, and if we can partner with a community to do the exact same thing, those will protect, which is why the children are in the middle, the students. We can maximize the capacity within all of our students so that when it is time to go to the next grade level or graduate, the ultimate goal of the pre-K-12 experience, they're able to look and say, which one of these things do I want to do? Because I'm qualified to do them all. So which one do I want? Because my capacity has been built up. That's the big idea of hashtag Bibb for Bibb. Next slide. So here's the big items we know we want to address as we continue this school year in response to what I've seen and as we continue into the future. First is a sense of worth within our students, and we recognize that is a responsibility of adults. Argue with me on that one. It is our responsibility to instill in our students a sense of worth, whether you are a parent, the owner at Popeyes, the gas station attendant, the preacher in the community, the coach, whoever it is, we all must own that. The second is that of student safety. I know there's at least one person here tonight who wants to discuss safety. I'm here with you on it. And we are so thankful. Let me pause for a minute. Not only can I say I'm grateful to how Westside responded to a recent situation, I was here about 5 minutes after the announcement was said, and I got to witness the response with my eyes. And when I tell you we took it seriously, we responded on a dime, and I'm so happy to know that I had the individuals that I had in place to make sure that all of us stayed safe. Student literacy and performance, critical, grade level by grade level. And everything that we do academically is helping us to increase the performance of our students, but also focus on their literacy. I want to throw this question out. not to challenge you, but to challenge you. What is your child's lexile? For all of my parents. If you don't know that, no worries. We have the tools and the capacity to have you look at a spot and know exactly what it is. And it's so important to understand that. I'm going to leave you with that because it's important to know where your child is from a literacy standpoint and what we're doing to try to help out along that line. Ownership of learning is critical, especially after coming from a pandemic. Let me tell you what didn't happen, if I can be transparent with you. What didn't happen when the pandemic ended, when we came back to school, was that students came on their knees, please let me back in, or I promise you I will never act up again. I promise you I'm going to do my best every single day. Don't ever let that happen. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. It happened in some lights, but it didn't happen across the board. So we are still working on making sure that students understand what we are trying to do for them, so much so that they apply it every single day. Student presence speaks to that as well. And when I say presence, I don't necessarily mean that you come to school, but when you come to school, you are focused on a dime and nothing distracts you, and you're able to get yourself to whatever those dreams were when you were in the kindergarten grade or first or second grade. And then lastly, student readiness for the next phase of life along the lines of what I call the 4 E's, and I'll give you more about that: entrepreneurship, enrollment, enlistment, or employment, which is taking me now to the meat of my presentation. And what I want to do now, next slide, is try to paint a picture. But before I do that, these are some top of mind questions that you just need to know are the core of my thinking. The first one just has to do with this whole idea of making sure that people feel valued and motivated across the board. We are a human organization, and I will never lose sight of that. The second one, it illuminates this idea of not just having practices, but narrowing ourselves down to the most valuable practices so that we can maximize the time we spend together. The third has to do with when we move with vision. That is, you know where we're going, and we move with purpose. You know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then the last, of course, one of the most important ones, because we feel like everybody deserves to feel safe in an environment that they come to learn. So now, I want to take some time to talk about a path to success. Again, tying my vision together. Now, I want you to understand how I roll. I put this vision out at the very beginning of the year. And now what I'm trying to do is just start adding meat to the vision so that you understand it's not just this group of words, but there's some meaning behind, there's some strategy behind where I'm trying to go as your superintendent. So now let's take some time, next slide, to paint a picture and give you just a snippet. And this is a snippet of what's happening right now on behalf of our children. Next slide. Let's talk dual enrollment first. So important for people to understand dual enrollment. If somebody can get their calculator out and just get ready, and I'm going to throw some numbers at you, I would appreciate it. That's all I need. Next slide. So dual enrollment, and forgive me if you already know these things, but I can almost guarantee I'm going to share something with you tonight that is insightful. As a matter of fact, when I get to the end, I'm going to see if I shared anything with you that you did not know. We're talking about college courses, free, up to 30 credit hours while in high school. And you see we already have relationships with universities and colleges that are receiving our students. I did say free, right? Let's do some math. Somebody who has their phone out, give me 30 credit hours times $2,500. That's about how much on average a semester hour costs. How much money is that? $75,000 saved on college credit. You see our current number, 660 students. And we are in a space where dual enrollment is available to all of our students at a certain time in our high school career. And I want to make sure that you are aware of that as early as possible so that you can line your student up to understand it and yourself so that when that time comes, you can get what I consider to be free money. Imagine somebody giving you a $75,000 check, a scholarship in high school and saying, use this towards college, and you get it for free. That's the way I look at it. So, FYI, let's continue to build this. Next slide. Tutor.com, let's bring it back into the building. We spend, I want to say, is it $400,000 for what we call Tutor.com. And let me make sure you understand it because I'm sharing this based on numbers I got that showed me significantly underutilized potential in this tutor.com. Next slide. So you're talking about learning from home 24/7, next slide, for every single student, every single day, for all grade levels. Who's been on the website to go to customer service or to pay your bill, and then in the bottom right corner, a chat person, "Hi, this is Evan. Can I help you today?" Evan is not an AI in most cases. Up to a certain point it is, but then it gets to a person. Tutor.com functions in the same way, where a student can go on under a certain subject, ask a question, and get online direct support on any subject. I'll give you what really blew me away. I did not know this until this year, and I'll use it as an example. Let's say your child is in advanced placement literature and has an essay due in class. That student can submit that essay to a person on tutor.com, and in a certain amount of days, receive feedback on that essay for free. People charge top dollar for those kinds of services. So I need you to know as a parent, for anything academic, your child has access through ClassLink to tutorial assistance on top of what the school and the teacher and other resources provide. Next slide, let's keep building this. Parent portal. So parent portal is important. Next slide, if you will, because this is the way that parents can stay engaged and informed. We're talking about monitoring attendance, communicating with teachers, knowing grades. When I had this set up for my son, when my wife did, it almost drove the house crazy, because every time he was absent or missed a class, ding, grade popped up, bing, deficiency, bing. So I knew at all times what was happening with my son because I was tied in to Parent Portal. Currently, Parent Portal is underutilized by our parents, which is why I'm sharing it with you tonight. It did come out in our last meeting that we need to make some improvements so that when you do engage in Parent Portal, you're getting the response that you expect from our teachers and otherwise. So I'm bringing that back to the table to make sure we're being good stewards. But I want to make sure that you know that you have a resource where you can know at all times what's happening to your child. You can know your child's grade before your child knows their grade. And that's where we need to stay, where we need to stay ahead of our students. Next slide. Let's talk about flex. So I'm going to bounce in the school and out the school. So let's say hypothetically a student wants to become an entrepreneur. In the old days, you would just have to find your way and maybe connect with a mentor. We have what's called Flex, next slide, birthed in Fitzgerald, Georgia. But this is a program that is in place for students to receive direct support and training from members of the community who own businesses. Not just that, we have students who right now are prepared to walk away with seed money, not to start their business, but continue to establish businesses as well. In upwards of $10,000, space to operate your business. So what we're doing now is starting to build this framework so that if a student says he or she wants to be an entrepreneur, we say, fine, let's get some people connected to you and let's get you in this program if you're interested, and let's make it count for real. Let's keep moving, building it, making Bibb government. So if you follow me on Facebook, you've probably seen me take selfies with different individuals. Not just a picture, y'all, but it's a part of telling the story. Next slide. So Making Bibb government came to me, and we talked about a pipeline through government-based careers and a specific ask for us to partner with them so that when students graduate, they can have a way to possibly be employed with the government. And I'm not just talking about regular jobs, but career-based opportunities. So we go back to those 4 E's, and I'll talk about them in a minute towards the end. Making Bibb government has come to the table as well. What I'm trying to communicate to you is the eagerness of and the beautiful, vast resources that we have that are building. Next slide. Greater Macon Chamber of Commerce and Work Bank. Let's say, thank you. You own it, man. I appreciate it. Same page. That's what I'm talking about. Let's say hypothetically a kid says, hey, I want to become a doctor. When I was a kid, that means I had to go downstairs, go to the bookshelf, A, B, C, D, I, D-O. Get the D-O dictionary and go to doctor and read the paragraph on what it meant to be a doctor. Or perhaps at my yearly checkup, talk to the one doctor that I went to. This work bay experience is twofold. I want to say it's 2 Fridays out of the month. We connect our students, is it 6 through 12? I think 6 through 12 students. We connect them with a professional in a field to actually sit and listen and talk to a professional about his or her field, ask questions, but then on the Workbay platform, let's say if I want to go and read more for myself, we have a 24/7 accessible platform where I type in doctor and all of these resources pop up and videos pop up, and it thoroughly educates me on everything I may need to know about that particular career. That's something that continues to build itself. But students right now who want to be anything, they don't have to sit and wait to figure it out after college. They can read about it right now. They can possibly, and the other thing that the Macon Chamber of Commerce is working with us on is connecting us with as many organizations and employers and people in the field so that if a student communicates a wish or a dream to become something, we can connect that student with somebody who's already doing it. As a matter of fact, I just got off the phone about an hour ago with Justice Verda Colvin. The reason I was talking to Justice Verda Colvin is because I was at a Southwest Central football game and I was talking to some kids about Workbay. And wow, 5 of the 6 young ladies shunned what I was saying. One young lady said, "What was that again?" "Because I want to be a judge." Well, guess who you're talking to? And I connected her with Justice Verda Colvin. What power is that for you to be connected? They already FaceTime with each other, and the next step is for them to connect so she can see exactly what she wants to be. I dare you to tell me what you want to be, because we're going to try our best to make it happen. Macon Bibb Industrial Authority. This is crazy, and it educated me. Go to that picture, if you will. So we sat down with the Macon Bibb Industrial Authority to talk about the billions of dollars, multi-millions of dollars of industry in our city. I had no clue that we have over $1.8 billion of international industry in our city. Guess what? I'll use YKK as an example, who just broke ground on a second site. Anybody want to take a guess as to what they're going to build on that second site? Anybody know? You can say it. Windows. Windows. So YKK builds windows? Wow. Zippers, windows. Here's the thing about window building now. Window building now is much more technological. So the fact that they're building a new site off of Skipper Road means they don't desire to fly planes back and forth. That's not even financially feasible to fly them overseas to bring workers in from their homeland. Rather, they would like to have an educated workforce that they can provide top-notch jobs to. So imagine, if you will, a YKK facility being built 5, 6, 7 years from now. They are going to be hungry for a workforce coming out of college and coming out of high school to employ in valuable careers. This is in our backyard, in addition to the other $1.8 billion of industry. Let's go to the flip side. I'm building something, and I'll show you where I'm going in just a minute. Let's talk about the Dual Achievement Program at Central Georgia Technical College. Now remind yourself that I already shared that they are one of our dual enrollment partners. But on the other end, they recognize, and the state of Georgia recognized, that some students will get to high school late. Some will not experience success. I want to introduce to you, go back to that picture if you will, Armani Robinson. And while he's not one of our students, he represents the first student to graduate from the Dual Achievement Program, which means he got all of his high school requirements completed on top of obtaining technical college credits. This young man was lost to the streets with no hope and no opportunities at his age to obtain a diploma. But this program gave him an out, and now he's well on his way, totally turned around, meeting his full potential. And we have this program available to our students as well. Next slide. And just to let you know, this requires a minimum of 6 credit hours in order to be eligible. So on one end, if you're on point, you can go ahead and get college credit and dual enrollment. On the other end, if you're not on point, just give us 6 hours of credit and then let us grab you and put you in a non-traditional setting and possibly give you the same outcome as the high achiever, because we don't want to lose any child. Next slide. Robins Air Force Base. My goodness. I had the pleasure of meeting, I'm going to call him a former cook because that's what he was. General Grabowski, the Major General of Robins Air Force Base, came to us. Actually, I attended a military affairs luncheon, and he talked about how important it is to connect with the school district and said he's willing to do whatever it takes to improve our connection. That turned into a meeting with our mayor, with Macon Workforce, Macon Chamber of Commerce, and Starbase and the district to talk about what this will look like. I want to zero in on this upper left-hand corner. And what you see in the upper left-hand corner is an example of current jobs and jobs off into the future, because they've already cast a net to know what they will need off in the future. And they are literally, I won't say begging, but they are asking for us to get and stay on the same page, because they will be after our graduates. Not so much to join the military, while that could be an option, but to make sure they understand the opportunities by way of military-based careers, both on the side of being in the military and also by virtue of being a civilian. They came to us to talk about what this will look like. And the way he painted the picture is he showed China's defense versus the United States defense, and the urgency that is in place for our defense to continue to build itself, which translates to careers in the military. He was a cook that became a major general, which shows you the progression opportunities within the military. Let's go to the next one. Mercer University and adult education. Here's what's interesting. I have a homeboy who works at Mercer University. We were at a kids' party, and we just started talking, and he heard that I was becoming the superintendent. And I said, hey man, what are you doing again? Well, I work with Mercer University in adult education. I said, let's talk. Next slide. So we talked. And as we talked, my question was this: what can you offer to my parents, to my families, who may want to go back to school or get in a space to continue their learning? That turned into an interest meeting that resulted in about 30 to 40 parents now with the opportunity to return to school with this ultimate vision of having a parent in school while a child is in school. So we're trying to hit this thing at both angles, and what they are serving as right now is a trailblazer as it relates to saying you have a population of adults, we have adult education, why don't we work together so we can add value to the whole house? So we look forward to that first group of parents enrolling. I want to say it's happening in January or sometime soon, but this is going to be big and put pressure on Gordon State College, Wesleyan, Middle Georgia State, Central Georgia Tech, and others who have not taken advantage of a base of parents who might want to improve their lives as well. Next slide. Project Aware. This is important, and I want to go all the way back to what I said in the very beginning, and that is that we recognize the impacts from COVID. It exacerbated issues regarding mental wellness that were already in place and brought out some. This is personal for me because as a parent with 2 kids in my house, I had one child struggling mentally, and I knew it. And I had another child struggling mentally who made A's despite all of that, but I didn't realize it until a year and a half later when she started opening up. And it would have been nice for me to be able to make a phone call and have resources outside of daddy who wants to be Superman and save the world, but even realizes in my middle class house that I can't do it all by myself. I realized that with my children, and one is off in college now, thank God, and the other's about to leave this year, so we hope. So go back to the other one. So I want you to know that we have mental health counselors to assist our students. And this is for all students. But we're talking about referrals that can be made by teachers, by counselors, by parents. And then we align whatever the need is with the right level of supports. And this is just one part of the mental health support mechanisms that we have in place as a district. Next slide. And finally, I do believe Leader in Me. Leader in Me is flourishing more in our elementary schools, but what you need to understand about Leader in Me is that we are focusing on these seven principles. And these principles and the big idea are designed to help students to find that leader in themselves and then use these qualities throughout the rest of their lives. What typically happens is the same thing that happens with us as parents, some of us. And that is, as our children get older, we abandon those things that we did in the younger years. Younger years, somehow parents show up all the time. But as children get older, for whatever reason, we kind of get away from that and think that our children have it. Allow me to throw in a quick commercial break. Children need us more, and I may be talking to the choir, the more they understand the world. They need you more. When they're at that dependent age where they can't cook, and can't unlock the door, and can't drive, and can't go down the street, they depend on you more. But when they can cook, and can go down the street, and can put in www, go wherever you want to in the world on your phone.com, when they can understand the world better, they need us more. And we recognize that. So Leader in Me is something that will continue to grow. Next slide. And thankfully to this man and other individuals who helped us to fund this process, we're now not only providing academics, but we continue to provide a more social and emotional approach to what we're doing for our students every single day on the ground. Next slide. So, in a nutshell, here's what I need y'all to get. And I know you cannot read everything that's in the circles, but the big idea is that I've covered everything in every single one of those circles. And what I want you to see in this graphic is this. Our students are surrounded by opportunities and options. And what we're trying to do is respond to a very, very cruel world. Understand the big idea of what you're looking at. Because what we recognize is that this world is in place. This has not changed. I don't think it's going to change. To eat our students alive. The world wants to suck them in and destroy them. We recognize that. So because of that, we realize how important it is for us to create a protective barrier of options and opportunities. Let me rephrase. I have not shared with you everything that's available, but I'm giving you a snapshot that shows you some of the strong pieces that we're building so that every single student can look and ask themselves, what is the Macon Bibb Industrial Authority for as it relates to the district? For me. What's Parent Portal in place for? For me. Because when I get off base, my parents need to know, and as much as I don't want them to know, they need to know. No child's going to say that, but it's the truth. Why is Work Bay and Chamber of Commerce or Tutor.com in place? For me. We know that's a journey to get students to realize that everything we're doing is for them. Who remembers that you thought it was a lie when you about to get a whooping? And somebody said, I'm doing this for you. I know this ain't for me, this is for you. This hurts me more than it hurts you, even though you thought that was a lie. But the truth behind that is that they were struggling to get something out of you that they saw was going in the wrong direction. So this is part of the school's effort to say, look, all of this is ready. So now we need you to get down in these classrooms, and we need parents to get on the same page with us so that we can all see success in terms of all these relationships and resources that are available from a child's perspective for me. Next slide. I could mention communities in schools. That is in a good deal of our schools. Right, real-time supports for students as needed. And I'm talking about clothing, personal products, everything. Communities in schools will respond. Communities in schools has paid some people's rent and paid a light bill. So you talk about getting into the weeds of supporting students, we have that framework in place. Next slide. I could tell you about the Bold Group, a group of black and white gentlemen who got together one day and said, you know what, you're in business, I'm in business. We need to deal with this racial thing, so let's become brothers. And then let's find ourselves on point about some purposes. So this is the bold group who came together and invited me and said, Dr. Sims, can you come tell us your vision and help us understand so that we can go back to the table and see how we can support the schools better with resources, big time and big hearts. Next slide. I could tell you about the United Way with Reunited, with our communities and schools efforts and everything else they do by way of going after grants left and right. I'm going to call her out. I don't have a picture of her. I can tell you about Shakita Maxwell in the back. Shakita Maxwell is always sending me something about what she is doing in the community by way of resources and support for students. And I rolled up on her one time and she was coming out of one of her events, always doing something. So there's so many partners and friends that we have in this effort on top of what I've shared. And it's just important for us to understand that. I could tell you about the fraternities and the sororities and everything that they are doing to support all of our schools. And we're trying to get all of our fraternities and sororities to adopt schools, adopt students, and help us out. And just know part of my vision is to gather up the whole city of Macon. Everybody. I want everybody to say, I have a stake in this game because we realize where we are in this post-pandemic time. I can tell you about the next level community in terms of churches who are actively engaged not only in the work that they're doing as a church, but ready and willing to train other churches on how to adopt a school. So Paul Little's waiting on a phone call back from me so we can talk about how do we grab other churches and train them up and then send them out to go grab a school and love on them. We have 1,400 churches in Macon, by the way. Impact. 1,400 churches, 38 schools and programs. 1,400 churches, 22,000 students. Somebody do that math. That tells you the impact potential that we have. And I'm after it all. But let me talk about this. Because what I really need you to understand is why are we putting all these pieces in place? We are trying to win a war. Up to some point in every child's life, and the same thing happened to you, it was all about me learning how to read, me learning how to write, me learning how to speak, me learning letters, me learning numbers. Next slide. But what happens in everybody's life, and this is where we lose students, me learning switches to learning me. And the students learn who they are. Now they look out and their eyes get wide open and they make a decision. And when they make that decision, we want to be able to say, look at this circle and look at everything available to you. And can we get you to make the right decision? Can we bombard you with great information, great opportunities, and great options so that you will choose otherwise? And every child, believe it or not, has the right to choose. And as they engage in their right to choose, we want to be in their face, which is the big idea I want y'all to walk away with. So I want to talk now about this idea for me and then bring it to a close. And then we'll see, as far as questions are concerned, what we have from the body. I want to talk about this idea for me because for me is this idea of us personalizing this experience so the students, when they walk in the door, they realize every single day what is happening is for me. And because it's for me, I'm going to treat it as if it is for me. Next slide. So here's the next level, just to give you a teaser about where we're going by way of branding and direction. This idea for me says this, that if you give me great exposures that turn into real life tangible experiences, I will receive encouragement and enlightenment and be able to make an executive decision about what I want to do with the rest of my life. With that said, we don't want students just to be enrolled in school. We want them matched and enrolled, M-E. That means, unlike somebody I know who went to Georgia Tech on a full scholarship and in his second year left the school because he had this epiphany after an experience that told him, you want to be a teacher, so leave. I was not matched. I was on paper to Georgia Tech, but by way of what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, Georgia Tech was not the spot for me. So in 1990, I left Georgia Tech, left the state to become a teacher. One of the best decisions I ever made in my life. We don't want students just to enlist in the military. We want them motivated to enlist, which is why we're working with the Air Force Base and other places and moving towards a deeper education of the opportunities that exist by way of military-based careers And the fact that you can go to the military, the next thing you know, the rest of your education for the rest of your life is fully paid for. Just go. What do they call it? The GI Bill? Paid for. And we need kids to know that information so that you are now motivated to enlist and it's not a default decision. We don't want students just employed. We want them meaningfully employed. There's so many great careers with advancement potential and retirement opportunities. And we want to expose our students to all of those so that they can make an executive decision. And then lastly, as I said before, every student who says he or she wants to be an entrepreneur, we want them to be molded for entrepreneurship. Too many people go into that blindly, and there's no need for them to do that in the Bibb County School District. And just know I, along with my team, am pounding the pavement every single day looking for somebody else to help us fulfill this vision over the next several years. I want to talk about this bottom right picture so that you understand where that came from. I was at the national championship basketball game in New Orleans. And I came out, this was back in April, and I ran across these young men. And as I ran across, it's funny, my second interview was the next day, but I ran across these young men. And as I looked at them, they were drumming with incredible precision. And they had their bank accounts in front of them in the form of those crates. But the sound was amazing. But I had to stop for a minute and think about this young man in the orange and ask myself, wow, he could take all of that talent to Southern University right down the street on a full scholarship. Then I thought about the young man in the middle in the black with the shorts on and thought to myself, does he know that the Marine has a drum corps? And he could enlist in the military and be a part of that drum corps for the rest of his career in that military and perhaps lead the band one day. Then I thought about the guy on the right side in the turquoise pants, and I said to myself, Sonny Emery for Earth, Wind, and Fire is getting old. And one day they're going to need another drummer. Or Bruce Springsteen's going to need a drummer. Phil Collins is going to need a drummer. Funkadelic, they're going to need a drummer. Could he not now see the entire world drumming for one of them? But the failure is when you and I don't connect their talents and their interests with the opportunities at the next level. And far be it for none of those students to be able to take that talent and be enlisted somewhere, employed somewhere, teach their own drum classes, or go to college and do the same thing. Next slide. So with that said, one of the things we know that we need is a strong parent base. I've been having parent advisory meetings. One of the things that came out of the parent advisory meeting is this idea of getting a band of parents together who have committed themselves to advocate for our district and be very specific in looking at needs as they come about and then responding to those needs on behalf of the district. So what's happening now is the building of what we plan to call the 300, with the goal of having at least 300 parents who now want to stand back and say, yes, my child will continue to be my priority, but I'm putting right along that the priorities of this district. And if I can help in any kind of way to fill a gap for somebody, I stand ready, willing, and able. So shameless plug for anybody who might be interested in being a part of this particular group. And what we're asking everybody to do in light of everything that I just shared is to show up every single day. And I'm talking about every single day so that when opportunities present themselves, you put your whole foot forward in order to not only be able to choose it, but be able to choose it amongst other options that you have available to you as well. There's no greater feeling than options. And what we're trying to do is create that as best as possible with our students. As I get ready to close it out, so the Show Up campaign is over the horizon. You'll hear a lot about it in about 3 or 4 weeks. But there are 4 key pillars, and I know I'm speaking to the choir on these, that will be critical because the Show Up campaign that we're going to start has a student portion, a parent portion, and a staff portion. In my mind, the 3 most critical partners in this work. And then when I say staff, I'm talking about my board to me, all the way down to every single person in every single building. And of course, when I say parents, I'm referring to you. But these are those pillars along the lines of attendance, academics, character, and wellness, because we realize the students need to be present. We realize they need to be academically successful and commit themselves to it. We realize they have to be whole, and we realize that they have to behave in such a way and develop trusting relationships while we do the exact same thing. More to come on that. That was 2 commercials for you. I want to leave you with a quote that came from Andre Dickens. And if you watched the news, you saw one of several terrible things that happened by way of young adult violence. And he made this statement to parents: know where your child is at all times. And I want to encourage all of us to make sure that we know where our children are at all times, academically, emotionally, and perhaps as it relates to tonight, in preparation for the next level. Speaking of preparation, I do want to take a minute and shout out another one of my board members from 2 perspectives. Board member Jawan Jackson, would you raise your hand? Thank you for being here. I want to say 2 things about Jawan Jackson, though. Jawan Jackson, just so you know, y'all don't have regular board members in these streets. Jawan Jackson is one of our board members, but he's also a Westside high school graduate, and he works with what we call the TRIO program. I witnessed him one day in here helping students fill out the FAFSA, which means now we can get them ready to get all that money for college. So he's on the ground working really hard. This is not just Dr. Lisa Garrett, the vice president of the school board. She's also on the board for the Griffith Foundation and probably about 80 other boards, but she stays in the streets. But the Griffith Foundation is a foundation that looks way down and says, how can I help the least of these? So talking about 2 board members, among other individuals who are in these streets trying to help us out. And all I want to do as superintendent is gather everybody up so that we can all be on the same page. So moving forward, in closing, please know that these are unprecedented times that we're in right now. And because they're unprecedented times, I just believe we have to move differently. We have to abandon how we did things prior to the pandemic and say, you know what? Even in the midst of us having differences and disagreements and difficulties, how can we commit to getting past those in the best way possible and to stay on the same page on behalf of our children who will be released to the world at some point? And all I know, y'all, is the world's forces, they operate real well together. They don't have issues with each other. They stay on the same page and say, all we want to do is kill, steal, and destroy. And if y'all let us do it, we'll do it. So just know, as a background to my passion behind this, I just don't want to keep losing kids. Go back. With that said, I just need you to know we're not the enemy. And we want to build better, trusting relationships with each other. And we understand that as a process. And we need to make sure that in terms of shared accountability, that we all see this as our challenge to get all of our students on the same level, which is why I felt it necessary for you to know what has Superintendent Sims and his team been working on, and what are they trying to build, and where is it going. And I hope I've done a decent job in helping you understand that. And the last thing I want to end on is I think it's important to not get yourself stuck on math, science, social studies, and language arts, and that's it. Every single course that we give every single student, you have no idea what that exposure is going to bring out by way of what your child could be doing for the rest of his or her life. So I'm just asking everybody to take a look at everything your child is exposed to, because in something that they're exposed to, it will show them what they're destined to be for the rest of their lives. And on that note, and this came out of this auditorium as I talked to the football team right here, when I asked them about their school, and they said, man, my school is this, and I love Principal Hoyt, and the teachers, they cool, everybody's cool, I love how the way they treat me. And then I said, what about Macon? And that's what I got from them, silence. Then I started to probe them, and what I got, just the messenger, no indictment on anybody. And what I got was they didn't feel like the city cared for them. So part of what I'm striving to do, y'all, and sharing this information is to get every single student to be able to look to the left and to their right and be able to say, Macon loves me. It's possible, and we are the right size to be that kind of city where that happens. And with that said, if you have not done so yet, I have a podcast I do every single week. It's just 10 minutes of your life. If you're ever in the car loop, I want you to listen to In the Loop with the Soup. Get it? In the Loop? And it's to keep you in the loop. And what I strive to do is to choose a topic every single week that I feel has some value to parents. So if you have not subscribed via Spotify or Apple, please do so and listen at your leisure. Lastly, If you haven't followed me on social media, and just so you'll understand how my social media works, the purpose of my social media is to promote the district I love, and that's it. It's not a place for concerns. It's not a place to air out dirty laundry. We have processes for that because we realize that's necessary. But what I have to do is promote what I love. And I love this city, and I love my district. And that's what this is for. And I think that's my last slide. And on that, I want to say thank you for giving me this time to help you in some kind of way. Real quick, assessment. Raise your hand if I share something with you tonight you didn't know about. That's why I'm here. And I wish I had 600 parents to get the same information, because I know there's stuff you don't know about and the big ideas behind it all. So with that, we can close out. We did record. I want you to know we did record because, again, I'm doing no excuses. Okay, you didn't come? We're going to record it and then throw the link out. I might even do a virtual option to get parents to join in on that so that nobody can say I didn't try to tell you. So as we close, I want to do this. If you have individual questions, I promise you I will stand right here and I will stay. I've done it for the past 2, I'll do it again. If we have questions that you feel are good for the group, I want to open up the floor at this time for those particular questions. Does anybody have any questions? Good for the group. All right. With that